There was a real revolution when Street Fighter 2 came. That was a big deal, and it changed everything.
Round one, fight!
For more than 30 years, Street Fighter has been the gold standard for combat video games.
The third strike, y'all, is Street Fighter 3.
It has spawned films, cartoons, and an ever-expanding universe of sequels and spin-offs. The franchise is so well known that many of its characters have become cultural icons in their own right. But what you might not know is that a modified edition of Street Fighter 2 from back in the 1990s pushed the game's maker, Capcom, to release what some consider to be the definitive version.
I wonder myself how Capcom was able to pull it off. Street Fighter, which was an incredible breakthrough that we're still talking about and still playing today. How did they do it? I don't know.
It was 1991, and Street Fighter 2 had just been released.
You're no Street Fighter.
Back then, online gaming wasn't really a thing. Instead, gaming enthusiasts flocked to play the newest titles in arcade halls. Long before streaming services, the only way to play a game or watch a movie was to get your hands on a physical copy. In back alleys of market streets in places like Hong Kong, vendors sold pirated copies of the latest action films. And there were also computer games, copied onto floppy disks and reproduced en masse for illegal sale. But when it came to modifying an arcade game, a lot more sophistication was needed.
呢一隻咧就都係街頭霸王啦，咁但係呢一個咧就係一啲改咗嘅版本啦。咁佢係上面你見到係有啲 ROM 啦，有啲係原裝嘅 ROM 嚟嘅，有啲人咧就係燒咗啲 ROM 落去，跟住就 replace 咗佢咁樣咯。係啦，咁啊跟住我哋而家就試下玩呢一隻。然後咧。
This is Perry Yeung. He has an extensive collection of arcade memorabilia at his warehouse in Hong Kong. Here, he shows us what an arcade board looks like, with markings to prove it's the real deal, made at a Capcom factory. But while the board is genuine, there have been some changes made to it.
佢本身係你睇到咧，佢本身係第二代嚟嘅。但係咧，你見到佢改咗啲色咧，就見到係其實呢個就係特別版本嚟，冇改得好誇張，咁所以就係我反而係中意咁樣咯。嗱，你見到已經喺空中㗎啦，個波咧嗰個方向咧係唔同。哇！睇下勁快。
Gaming fans use their electronics and computer programming skills to make unexpected changes to the games. They could introduce new moves or dramatically speed up the gameplay. There were dozens of such modified versions of Street Fighter 2 available in the early 90s, but only one, known as the Rainbow Edition, went on to achieve iconic status.
Someone made this crazy Rainbow Edition version where they've hacked the ROM and characters have totally insane moves. But another aspect of that game is that the game speed is much faster. It's really cranked up, and that I think added a lot to the fun factor of Rainbow Edition.
You win. Perfect.
So it's like broken in the sense that it's not a competitively viable game. No one would take it seriously, but it was really fun. Just what a fantasy it was to do crazy versions of all the moves. Anyway, it started to appear in arcades. So that means arcade owners were buying these illegal, bootleg boards. And that kind of steals their thunder. That's a real bad thing for them.
That presented a headache for management at Capcom because Street Fighter 2 was one of the company's key revenue generators.
One of the biggest problems was that players saw what it was like and felt what it was like to have a faster game speed. And when they go back to Champion Edition, which is the legitimate, release of the time, it felt way too slow. And I think they had kind of a panic moment where they said, so we need to put out some new version of Street Fighter very quickly that's like our answer to Rainbow Edition. So people will stop playing that and then we'll like play the real Street Fighter. And that edition was called Hyper Fighting. And one of the funniest things of the whole history of Street Fighter to me is that this rushed version, Hyper Fighting, is I think one of the best versions of Street Fighter ever created.
These modified editions, while controversial, are still of interest to collectors.
香港、台灣好似都有一啲別名咁樣嘅，我覺得改嗰啲名都好得意。咁同埋咧就係呢啲版本咧，其實係即係如果正確嚟講，其實都係一啲翻版嚟嘅。咁其實唔係咁好嘅。咁但係咧，我自己又覺得係佢有佢嘅樂趣喺度。其實佢嘅特色咧，咁即係我作為即係一個都玩咗好多年 Street Fighter 嘅人咧，我覺得佢最犀利嘅一樣嘢就係佢嘅平衡啊 balance 係做得好好嘅，因為佢一路都演變咗好多唔同嘅版本啦，咁一路都有進步嘅。
For true fans, what sets the Street Fighter series apart from other fighting games is its artistry and creative heritage.
There's some magic in there, though. I don't know how they did it. If you have a very detailed character, it can be less iconic, less memorable in a sense. If you go the other way and you have a very low detail on your character, it can be generic. So there was something magical about just exactly where they chose to be on that spectrum. When you punch, the way the screen shakes a little bit and how the game slightly imperceptibly pauses at each little punch. You probably don't even notice, but it makes it feel good.
So who actually made the Rainbow Edition? Were their identities ever revealed and were they prosecuted? Or do they deserve a thank you note from game developers? That's something we may never know, because the game itself offers few clues. Gaming enthusiasts around the world identified the Rainbow Edition as being made in Taiwan by a company named Hengxi Enterprise. But when we searched the Taiwanese company's registry for the supposed creator, the trail went cold. The Street Fighter franchise endures today with a new generation of players drawn to the same gameplay and innovation that Capcom has maintained since the 1990s. And now that online gaming has matured, players can face off against opponents pretty much anywhere in the world.
而家等排位賽，跟住我而家揀嘅角色係 JP， 因為我覺得JP 係一隻好多套路啊，好多 set up 嘅一隻角色，係喺隻機入邊嚟講好強勢啦，同埋好多遠程嘅嗰啲攻擊啦。
While Kevin Tin is still at the start of his gaming career, other players in Hong Kong are reaching professional status. In the autumn of 2023, Hong Kong player Chris Wong won the Capcom Pro Tour Premier Championship in Paris. Wong took home $15,000 and more importantly, gained international prestige in the gaming industry. He's currently playing Street Fighter 6, but his passion for the game has been years in the making.
屋企人啦，有我阿哥啦，咁細個大家都可能屋企比較貧窮啊，冇錢啊，咁但係咧我阿哥就可能儲錢，或者我阿媽儲錢買部遊戲機俾佢。咁我第一次接觸嘅遊戲咧就係Street Fighter 2，街頭霸王5咧，咁我成績可能有頭 第一年出嗰陣咧，其實我已經係打得唔錯。之後啦，打到去到 Street Fighter 6啦，咁幸好有Xbox 嘅贊助啦，咁佢會提供到機票啊、酒店啊，或者係啲地方俾佢去練習。
All these years later, Street Fighter's popularity endures.
What's funny to me about the history of the Street Fighter community is so many times in the history of it, it felt like, oh, this is going to go away. You know, this is like, it's becoming too niche. That was said just over and over, and it never went away.